Festival. Okay, good. As long as you can see that, then I think you're going to be okay. Good. Thanks for the report too, Bill, that you can see it. That's good. Since no one is talking right now, except for me, maybe when I'm talking, maybe my picture shows up for you. There, now let's see. MJ, can you see me? Yes, very good. So I think everything's all good on your end. Just have to wait a few minutes for our presentation to start.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off here because we are just about at 1 o'clock. So thank you to everyone who's joining us. Welcome to the 23rd Annual Metro Children's Water Festival. This festival is normally held in person at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds. It's a field trip for 4th graders, but this year we are online, which actually has allowed us to extend it to a broader audience. So kind of nice there. My name is Madeline Seblin, and I will be your co-host today. I work for Carver County's Water Management Organization, and we're involved in protecting lakes and rivers. And one of my other roles is on this planning committee with a number of these other lovely water resource professionals. So the planning committee is responsible for setting up the festival, and it's usually made of water resource professionals, educators, communicators, people that work in sort of that natural resource profession. Our virtual festival is going on. It started on Monday and tomorrow is our last day. We've had 9 live class sessions. So this is our last one for today, but there are 2 tomorrow that you can still register for and join us. And if you happen to miss any, or you want to go back and rewatch this one or one, you can do so on the Metro Area Children's Water Festival website. They're also being streamed live to our YouTube channel, and you can find the link for that in the chat. I believe Nathan just posted it there. The link to the YouTube will also be placed on our website as well. So we do encourage questions throughout the presentation. If you have any, there's two ways that you can submit them. We do have a chat box and we also have the Q&A. So feel free to post any questions you might have, and we'll be monitoring that throughout the session. And lastly, I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. So our presenter for the Mosquito Mania session is Alex Carlson, and he is the Public Affairs Coordinator for the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. So with that, I will pass it over to Alex.
Thank you very much, Madeline. It is great to be here. I'm missing seeing everybody in person at the fairgrounds, but I'm very excited to share what we've put together for everybody. What we have for the Mosquito Mania presentation is we have about an 18-minute video that I'm going to show. During the video, at any time, if you have questions, don't hesitate to post them. As Madeline said, you can do it in the chat or via the Q&A, or if you think of questions that come up afterwards, you can always email me, and I'll be sharing my email address throughout the presentation. But if you want it right up front, my email address is acarlson, C-A-R-L-S-O-N, @mmcd.org. So you can always email me questions. If you think of something a week from now and you have a question, go ahead and send it to me. So now I'm going to see how the technology is working for me and cue up the video. That buzzing sound is a telltale sign that summer is here in Minnesota, and with summer comes mosquitoes. Hi, I'm Alex from the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District here in St. Paul. We serve 7 counties of the Twin Cities here in the metro area, and our mission is to promote health and well-being by protecting the public from disease and annoyance caused by mosquitoes, black flies, and ticks in an environmentally sensitive manner. Worldwide, there are over 3,000 species of mosquitoes, and here in Minnesota, there are over 50. Only about 15 of the mosquito species we find in Minnesota are considered to be a pest problem, meaning that they bite humans and some may spread diseases. To really understand mosquitoes, it helps to know the mosquito life cycle. Let's take a closer look at the mosquito life cycle. For the mosquito life cycle, there are 4 stages to the complete metamorphosis of the mosquito. It starts with the eggs. Eggs hatch and they become the mosquito larvae, which spend a couple days in the water, and then they emerge as the pupa, which finally emerge to become adult mosquitoes, which then go off in search of a blood meal in order to lay their eggs. Think of it like caterpillars. Caterpillars start as an egg, and then they hatch and become caterpillars, which eat. Then they go to the chrysalis, which does not eat, and then they have the adult butterfly. Very similar life cycle with mosquitoes. Let's take a closer look, shall we? It all starts with a female mosquito, as females are the only ones that bite. They need the blood in order to produce their eggs. So the female goes in search of a blood meal. Some mosquitoes bite mammals, but not all do. Females get exactly the amount of blood that they need in order to produce their eggs. They actually have a defense mechanism that only allows them to get the right amount of blood. If they get too much, as you can see, it drips out the back, but they remain perfectly safe and able to go on and produce their eggs. Some female mosquitoes lay their eggs on the edges of a pond or a swamp or a wetland where they know the water's going to rise up after the rain. Other mosquitoes lay theirs directly on the water in rafts. Mosquitoes can produce 150 to 300 eggs at one time. After the eggs are laid, they harden and become dark to protect themselves from predators. Eggs can survive unhatched for up to 7 years. When the rain comes and the mosquito eggs end up in the water, that's when the larvae emerge from the eggs. Larvae require standing, still, shallow water in order to survive. Larvae are filter feeders. They stay near the surface of the water, and they feed on bacteria, protozoa, algae, and yeast, just about anything that they can get their hands on. And they're also at risk of becoming prey for many underwater predators, such as fish, frogs, or dragonfly larvae, which actually eat a lot of mosquito larvae. For most species of mosquito, the larvae remain underwater as larvae for about anywhere from 3 to 4 days to a full week. During that time, they have 4 stages called instars. After each stage, they shed their exoskeleton and emerge with a slightly larger size. After their 4th instar, they're ready to emerge as a pupa. That's what's happening in this video here. It's shedding its 4th exoskeleton and becoming a pupa. A pupa has trumpets. Those are those things near the top that allow them to breathe, and they form a shape that looks sort of like a shrimp. Pupa are known as tumblers because they tumble around in the water like that. The pupa don't eat at this phase. They just grow the wings and the body parts in order to emerge as an adult mosquito. Mosquitoes remain in the pupa stage for about 24 to 48 hours, and once they're fully developed inside the pupa shell, they're ready to emerge from it and become an adult mosquito. When they become an adult mosquito, they need standing water. They can see the importance of standing water. If it's too windy, they're not going to be able to emerge, and they use the surface tension of the water in order to dry out their wings, stay for a little bit before they go off in search of food. For most species, the whole cycle from egg hatch to larva to pupa to adult mosquito lasts about a week. With the right environmental factors, mosquitoes can reproduce very quickly. Let's do some mosquito math. It all starts with one female mosquito who gets a blood meal and lays about 300 eggs, which leads to about 150 female mosquitoes. Then the second generation comes along. Those 150 females lay 300 of their own eggs, which brings us to 45,300 mosquitoes. Half of those, 22,650, are females. Then the third generation, those females lay 300 eggs of their own, which brings us to 6,795,000 mosquitoes. Again, half of those are females. So the fourth generation comes along, we got 3,397,500 females times 300 eggs leads us to a whopping 1,319,250,000 mosquitoes, all from one female mosquito over the course of about 1 month. So you can see how quickly mosquitoes can replicate in our environment if we don't take precautions. mosquitoes need water to develop, and they find a lot of sources in the environment. Some species develop in permanent water like ponds and swamps. Mosquitoes need shallow, standing water, so large lakes or deep ponds aren't going to have as much mosquito larvae. There are several species known as floodwater mosquitoes that develop in ditches and wetlands and other areas that hold water after a rainfall. Then there are the container breeding mosquitoes that find a home in debris that is discarded, like tires or buckets or other trash, catch basins on the sides of the street, tree holes, and other man-made habitat. You can help eliminate this habitat by emptying out any containers that can hold standing water in your yard, and making sure that bird baths or landscape ponds get fresh water every week.
My name is Diane Crane, and I'm the entomologist here at the Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. I have a degree in biology, aquatic biology, and then I got a seasonal job at Metro Mosquito Control identifying mosquitoes, and I found out that I really liked it. And then I went into entomology and got my master's degree in aquatic entomology, so my focus is mostly aquatic insects. Primarily my job is to identify larvae and adult mosquitoes. We capture mosquitoes that are looking to find a host. We use sweep nets to capture mosquitoes coming to people. We have traps baited with carbon dioxide. We have other traps that collect mosquitoes that are going to lay eggs. We actually vacuum vegetation because we don't get enough mosquitoes. So we're looking for mosquitoes that are resting in the daytime. So we hire 6 people in the lab typically. They've got biology experience, they have a little bit of experience in microscope use, and basically we feel like if you know what the word taxonomy is, you're trainable. So their job in the summer is to help us process the multitude of samples that come in every single day. We're looking for, in adult mosquitoes, we look for different patterns on their bodies. Some mosquitoes have banded legs, others have all black legs. You can tell the different groups of mosquitoes apart by the shape of their abdomen. Some are rounded, some have pointed abdomens. So we're looking at lots of different patterns on their adult bodies. And for larvae, we're basically looking at hairs on the body. And then they also have little teeth on their air tubes or on their body. So it's just different configurations of hairs and teeth. There is one mosquito species called Uranitania sapphirina, and it has the most brilliant metallic blue scales lining different parts of their bodies, like lining their wings and their legs. And I often said if I wanted to be a mosquito, I would want to be Uranitania sapphirina, because it'd be so cool to have those blue scales going down my arms. We serve a vital public health service for the metro area. Mosquito can transmit a number of different diseases. We monitor the mosquitoes that can vector those diseases. Well, I like the variety in my job. Every day is different. Even though it seems like every day is the same, we do so many different things in a day that it makes it go really fast. And I never thought that I would be able to sit behind a microscope for 8 hours a day looking at a mosquito, but they're really beautiful and they're very interesting, and so that's what I do.
Hello and welcome to the 20th annual Mosquito Bite Games, brought to you live here from sunny, beautiful Minnesota. I'm Buzz Crenshaw.
And I'm Scratch Sanders, and we're your hosts for the annual competition to see who will be safe from pesky mosquitoes and who will get bit.
We have a great crowd for today's competition. Look at them filling up the stands, Scratch.
It's a barn burner out there. It's nearly twice the crowd of last year.
Yes, yes. They're in for a treat today. It's gonna be a fun time for all.
Let's meet today's contestants. First up is our rookie competitor, Drew Daffy. Drew is her first season here at the Mosquito Bite Games and claims that she can psychically communicate with bugs. Her backup plan is to punch every mosquito in the face. We'll see how that works out first.
I don't know about that, Scratch. Let's give it up for Drew. Yeah! Facing Drew today will be reigning champion Sam Sensible, who has won for the past 10 seasons running. Sam has an undefeated record. He says avoiding mosquitoes is all about preparation. Let's give it up for Sam. Yeah!
The competitors will meet in the middle and do their final preparations before the match begins. Let's take a look.
It appears that Sam is using his favorite EPA-registered bug spray, applying it all to the exposed skin. It's a good move there, Scratch. Oh, and look at this. In a gesture of sportsmanship, he is offering the bug spray to Drew. I did not see that coming, Scratch.
That's right, Buzz, and Drew is refusing despite the fact that she has a lot more exposed skin. Ooh, that decision might hurt.
That's gonna come back to bite her. Now, Sam is tucking his pants into his socks, an old trick. Pros have used that for centuries. He really knows what he's doing.
With final preparations complete, the referee will check in with competitors and give final approval.
Everything looks good. All right. And we are off. The contestants are ready and the mosquito will be merging any second now.
Oh, there she is, and boy, does she look hungry. Buzz, that is an 80s Japonicus. You can tell by the distinctive white armbands native to the Pacific Islands, but now it is quite comfortable in artificial containers right here in Minnesota.
So mosquitoes wait on the edges of a harborage and use their senses to determine where they'll find a blood meal. They detect humans and other mammals by the heat and the CO2 that we give off. They are also attracted to artificial scents like perfume and hairsprays.
Oh, and she seems to have found what she's looking for because she is moving closer to our contestant. Drew and Sam are preparing themselves. The mosquito is circling them. Which one is she going to choose?
Oh, and here she goes, and down goes Drew as the mosquito goes right past Sam and finds a blood meal in Drew. Sam Sensible is once again the champion of today's Mosquito Bite Games.
Yeah! And now remember, you can avoid mosquitoes by being like Sam. Wear long sleeves and pants that are light-colored, loose-fitting, avoid being outside during peak mosquito hours during dusk and dawn, and always wear EPA-approved bug spray. Thank you for joining us here at the Mosquito Bite Games.
Hey Scratch, did you put on bug spray?
No, actually, I...
Hi, my name is Kathy Beadle, and I am a field operations supervisor in the East region of Metropolitan Mosquito Control District. Today we're looking for mosquito larvae, and so that is the immature version of a mosquito, and they actually live in wetlands and in water. So what we're doing is we're looking for, they're called little wigglers because they look like little worms that wiggle on the surface of the water. And if we find a high enough number of them, we're going to then treat the site with a material that specifically targets these mosquito larvae to keep them from emerging into adults. So when we find mosquito larvae, we like to take samples. So we put them in vials like this, and then we'll send them off to our lab in St. Paul, and they identify the mosquitoes because there's over 50 different species that live in Minnesota. Some of them don't bite humans, so we'll just leave those alone. Once we get back from the lab what mosquito species we have, we can see if it's worth treating the site to get rid of those mosquitoes. Today we know that there are mosquito larvae in the site, so we're actually going to be applying a small pellet into the water, and that is going to prevent the mosquito larvae from turning into adults. So we do treatment by helicopter, backpack, or by hand, depending on the size of the site and kind of how easy it is to get around. So this site here, it's pretty level. It should be pretty easy to treat with a backpack. For about 7 years now, and it has been the best job that I've ever had. There's a big variety of things that I get to do. I get to work outside all the time. It feels great to be doing a service for the public. Everybody seems to like what we do, and you get to meet people out in the field. Yeah, it's just been an awesome job.
When controlling mosquitoes, it's very important to take into consideration the impact that our efforts have on human health as well as on the environment. Insects are an important part of our ecosystem, and it's important that controlling mosquitoes to protect human health doesn't harm pollinators like bees and butterflies, along with the many other animal species that call Minnesota home. At MMCD, we practice integrated pest management, which uses surveillance, data management and collection, and planning to ensure that our control is effective and safe. We rely on studies that measure impacts on any non-target species, and we partner with representatives from the Department of Agriculture, Department of Natural Resources, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, University of Minnesota, and several others to review our practices annually. We can all work together to make sure Minnesota is a healthy and safe place. Thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions that weren't answered by this video, do not hesitate to contact us. Have fun, stay safe.
All right, so that's the video portion. Now, if anybody has any questions, I'm not sure if I saw any pop up during the presentation, but don't hesitate to post them if you have a question. And I posted my email, so you can always send an email. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to share a slideshow. Hopefully everybody will be able to see this. And it's got some trivia questions based on the video. So this is kind of a answer on your own at home. I'm not gonna be looking for people to raise their hand or anything like that. But if you want, you can post answers in the chat before I reveal them. So some of these were things that were directly addressed in the video or just kind of general knowledge about mosquitoes. So the first questions were, how many mosquito species are there in the whole entire world? And how many species are just in Minnesota? I know the Minnesota number came up a couple of times, but I'm also curious if you know how many species are there in the whole entire world, which we mentioned at the very, very beginning of the video. If you have any guesses, you can type them in the chat. I'll give you a couple seconds. MJ's got it right. Over 50 species in Minnesota. The correct answer is there's 3,000 species worldwide. We say there's about 51 species found in Minnesota, but it varies. Sometimes we find a rare species that's not very common, so sometimes it'll be 52 species, but usually it's over 50 species in Minnesota. But only 15 of the species that we find in Minnesota are what we consider a pest problem, meaning they bite humans or they could potentially transmit diseases like West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis. So the 15 species that are considered a pest problem are what we target when we're doing our control. If we find species out there that are among the many species that don't bite humans, that prefer to bite amphibians or birds or something like that, then we usually leave those species alone. So there's a small number that we specifically target. Next question, how long can mosquito eggs survive? And the other part of that question is, do male mosquitoes or female mosquitoes bite people? I'll give you a couple seconds to think of your answers. This was mentioned during the mosquito life cycle section. It might have come up a couple of other times as well. Going once, going twice, and the answers are eggs can survive unhatched for up to 7 years. and only the female mosquitoes bite. So male mosquitoes, they only feed on nectar and sugars from plants that they need to basically get energy to survive. But they exist to mate with the female mosquitoes. Female mosquitoes get the blood meals from mammals or from other species in order to get the protein they need to produce their eggs. So that's why female mosquitoes bite, is because they need the protein found in blood to produce the eggs. Name one thing you can do to prevent mosquitoes or prevent getting bitten by mosquitoes. If you have one takeaway from the video today, this is what I hope it is: ways to protect yourself from mosquito bites. There was a couple of them mentioned throughout. The mosquito bite games had a couple obvious ones, because Sam Sensible was safe while Drew Daffy got lots of mosquito bites. Some of the things you can do: remove or empty containers from around your home. Anything that can hold standing water, make sure you remove that. And if it's something that is permanent, just make sure the water is refreshed every week so that there's not enough time for mosquito larvae to develop. Use mosquito repellents containing the active ingredient DEET. Anything that's EPA approved. There's a couple other good mosquito repellents. Figure out which one works best for you, but make sure you're always using repellent when you're going to be out in wooded areas or out around the time when mosquitoes tend to bite. Wear protective clothing, long, light, and loose is what we say. Long sleeves, long pants, loose fitting. Mosquitoes can't bite through clothing if it's loose fitting. And light colors. They're less attracted to light colors than they are to dark colors. And then finally, avoid those peak feeding times of dusk and dawn. It says dusk to dawn, but it's really dusk and dawn. The hour surrounding sunrise and the hour surrounding sunset are when mosquitoes are most active and when female mosquitoes are most seeking a blood meal. So those are the times that you need to look. A couple of questions I saw pop up. One is, how long is a mosquito's sucker? The technical term is a proboscis. The female mosquito has the proboscis. And that's a good question. It really varies depending on the species. It's really only a couple millimeters long. If you look at a picture of a mosquito, you can see that the mosquito, the proboscis is much shorter than like its legs or anything like that. It's pretty small. And then the other question I saw come in is, are male mosquitoes flies? No, male mosquitoes are still technically mosquitoes. They're just they have a little bit of a different look. The main way that you can tell the difference between a male mosquito and a female mosquito is their antenna. Females have a kind of just plain antenna, whereas male mosquitoes have a flowery antenna with a lot of different texture and patterns to it. And then the females also have a little bit of a longer proboscis. And if you happen to find mosquitoes that are this exact same species, the male tends to be smaller than the female. But if you're finding a lot of mosquitoes, chances are there's different species among them, and different species are different sizes. So size isn't always a way you can tell the difference between the two of them. If there's any other questions, go ahead and type them in the chat. And while you're typing in questions, I just want to mention, if you enjoyed the video today, the full video is posted on YouTube. So you can find it on the Children's Waters Festival website, or you can go to our website, mmcd.org, and click and get info about presentations. I highly encourage you to share this with other educators or any students who you know who are stuck at home doing distance learning and looking for some additional science enrichment. We want to get as many people to see it as they can. What's the difference between the flies? Well, there's a lot of different types of species of insect that bite. One of here you hear commonly is black flies, which are small, about gnat-sized insects that are more active in the spring. So a black fly is similar to a mosquito because they also bite and they seek blood in order to produce their eggs. They're just different sizes. They have different they have different, feeding patterns. The black flies are more rivers and streams is where they emerge from, with moving water, whereas mosquitoes need still water. So a couple differences like that. Can a female mosquito lay eggs more than once? Yes, they can. Some female mosquitoes can survive all summer long. And so when I do that mosquito math and you see that reproducing, you got to remember that the mom from the first generation is still around too. And she can lay eggs more than once. So mosquitoes, depending on the species, some mosquitoes only lay their eggs once and then they're gone. But the most common floodwater mosquitoes that we have in Minnesota, they can lay their eggs multiple times throughout the summer. Females tend to live a lot longer than the male mosquitoes. Males usually live long enough to reproduce, so 2 to 3 weeks, whereas the female mosquitoes can last, 2 to 3 months, depending on if they're able to find their blood meal in order to reproduce and if they're able to get enough food to sustain themselves. So mosquitoes really are abundant. You can see why we've got our job cut out for us when you look at those mosquito math section. One mosquito can do a lot of damage. If you're ever curious, just Google mosquito time lapse, because there's some interesting lab videos of an enclosed white space where they have like an all white room, and they start with like a few mosquitoes, but they give them the right circumstances to reproduce. And then they do a time lapse and they show you how many mosquitoes, and that white room gets darker and darker and darker as more and more mosquitoes begin to fill it up. And it's really kind of fascinating. Do the mosquitoes have the blood of the person the mom bites? So that's a good question. So when a mosquito lays an egg and that mosquito hatches, do they have any of the DNA or the leftover blood from the blood meal that their mom got? So the short answer is no, they don't. However, there are some diseases which are considered transovarial diseases, means they're transmitted through the mosquito reproduction and they survive through the eggs. So one example is a disease called lacrosse encephalitis. This is spread by tree hole mosquitoes. And this is a disease that, so the mosquito gets infected with the disease and they bite somebody and then they lay their eggs. Those eggs will carry the disease with them in the next generation. And so some of those diseases we got to be really worried about and make sure that we're finding the sources of mosquitoes. So usually if we find cases of lacrosse encephalitis, the first thing we look for is tree holes or discarded tires or any type of debris that can hold water, because that could be where the mosquitoes are reproducing from. And then we can eliminate those and then eliminate the disease. But most mosquitoes, when the eggs are laid and then the new mosquitoes hatch, there's no remaining blood left. So that doesn't mean, so they don't necessarily have the blood, but the proteins in the blood are what give the mosquito the ability to lay their eggs. And then those proteins will still be active. So I think that's what you're going for with the question there. It's not like your blood will survive for generations. Usually the blood only lasts with the mosquito who fed upon it. All right, those are some good questions. If there are any other questions, go ahead and throw them into the Q&A or into the chat. And again, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But you can always email me. My email address is acarlson@mmcd.org. So feel free to send me a question if you think of anything after this presentation's over. And I'd always happy to share that. What happens if a mosquito has human blood? Yeah, so some mosquitoes try to bite or prefer to bite humans, prefer to feed on humans or mammals that are similar sizes to humans. So they get the blood and then they use the protein in their blood. They digest the blood and then they use the protein to reproduce. So one question we've gotten a lot this summer is, can mosquitoes spread other bloodborne diseases, like it's mainly COVID-19? Like, can mosquitoes spread COVID-19? If they bite somebody who's got the disease and then they've got the disease, can they then bite somebody else and spread the disease that way? And the answer to that is no, they cannot. And the reason is because the way diseases are spread is because they have to be digested by the mosquito and they have to survive the digestive process. So when the mosquito gets the blood goes through a digestive process inside their bodies, and then the protein is saved to produce the eggs. Only certain diseases are able to survive that digestive process. So the diseases that we watch out for are West Nile virus, lacrosse encephalitis, Eastern equine encephalitis, and then there's a couple others as well, Jamestown Canyon virus. And then outside of Minnesota, you see malaria, yellow fever, dengue fever, Zika virus. So you can see those diseases. Those are all diseases that survive the digestive process, and that's how mosquitoes spread them. But if you bite somebody who has the flu or who has similar diseases or has COVID-19 or anything like that, the mosquito is not going to be able to transmit that disease because that disease can't survive the digestive process. So It's a question people ask a lot whenever there's new diseases that come out. So it's one of the questions that we get a lot. What I meant was a mosquito's blood was. No, so I'm not sure if I'm answering what you're trying to get at, but when a mosquito bites a human or mammal and gets the blood meal, the blood goes through the digestive process, but the human blood doesn't become the mosquito blood. So it's like it's like their food. So it's like how we eat food and we digest food, and then the energy from that food we use. So it's not like it's not like the blood lives in their body or anything. I think that answers that question. I think you're posing it more as like a what if, and I think I responded. Okay. I don't see any other questions coming in, so I'm gonna pass things back to Madeline if she's still on, so she can kind of wrap things up.
I am. Thank you, Alex. That was a really great presentation. A lot of good questions and answers too. I learned a lot. So that is all we have for today for our Mosquito Mania session. You can join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day of the virtual water festival. And the two presentations tomorrow are the mystery of a disappearing waterfall. That's at 10 a.m. and a model stream. That is at 1 p.m. So the last thing I have for you is after we close out, there should be a link that pops up for an evaluation for the session today. So if you could please take some time and fill that out, that would really help us out. And I think that's it. Don't forget to visit the Virtual Water Festival webpage and check out all the additional stuff we have. And thank you.